G'day guys, and welcome to another YouTube lesson. Today we're taking a look at the fourth and the final of the traditional 4Ps. That is place, really better known as distribution. I think the only reason they call it place, because it's certainly not location of the business, don't ever say that, okay, is because the 3Ps plus, distribution doesn't sound as good as the 4Ps. The place is about the distribution of the product. And I want you to forget this notion of location of a business and think about three other aspects that make up place/distribution. Those three things are distribution channels, channel choice, and physical distribution issues. They're the three things only that you'll talk about when you're discussing place and distribution as an effective marketing strategy. Now, when we take a look at distribution channels, that's the first part of place or distribution. What's a distribution channel? Distribution channels are the channels, the ways by which a product is moved from the place of manufacture, so the product's place of origin, where it was made, through to the consumer, the product's final end user. Now, there's a number of distribution processes or steps that can occur, and this is up to the manufacturer and so on to choose which method that they would like their product, their good, to be given, sent, distributed to the customer. Now here you're saying, so they're talking about marketing. What the hell? How we're getting it to the customer have anything to do with marketing? It does, big time, because if you don't distribute it in the right way, it has massive negative marketing effects for a business. i.e., when I try to get a particular item, if I can't get it for months and months, but a competitor can give it to me reasonably quickly because of their distribution is better than the other business A's distribution, who am I going to go with? That's a no-brainer. I'll go with business B. Also, we looked at promotion earlier, word of mouth. Who will I tell my friends? I do have friends, sort of. Who will I tell my friends about in terms of which business to go with? Who will I whinge about and complain to? I'll go with business B and I'll be complaining about business A. So distribution is a very important strategy, and the channel by which the manufacturer gets their product to the end user, the customer, is vital. Now, there's three main distribution channels. They are P2C, the producer, the manufacturer, directly to the consumer. It's a newer type of distribution channel. It's been enabled by globalization and transportation technologies. Now, there's benefits of each of these particular ones and disadvantages that we'll look at in a second. Then there is producer to the retailer, like JB Hi-Fi, then to the consumer. So you have the manufacturer, the maker, selling the item to retailers. Retailers then sell to the consumer. So you've got a middle person there, middle business. The the old school way was the producer who'd make it. They would sell to a wholesaler. They are often a company that would import from overseas the manufactured items. The wholesaler then sells to the various retailers in Australia, and the retailer then sells to the consumer. So that one's called P to W to R to C. Producer to wholesaler to retailer to consumer. That again is the distribution channel. So producer to consumer. What's the advantage of that and what's the issues with that? When it's the producer selling directly to the consumer, the advantage of marketing for that business, the P2C method, is that the quality is being able to be controlled much better for the producer. If you make a product and you can sell it straight to old mate the consumer, you're able to better control the quality that's being used. They're not people touching it, playing around with it all the way through to the consumer. So your quality control can be better. Goods will be less likely to be damaged, and therefore you'll be able to have a better quality product. Yeah. Another advantage is that it could be shorter lead time because you're selling directly to the consumer. So from a marketing perspective, that could be useful. The downside, I make computers, I make cars. That's my expertise. I'm not very good at getting them into a different country, like being a wholesaler. I'm not very good at then selling them to consumers directly. I can't find it. If I go and do this and try and sell directly to consumers, where am I going to sell them? Just on eBay? Like, I don't have that marketplace. So it might be bad for my marketing. Business B, who chooses to be able to use experts to sell it, like producer to wholesaler to retailer to consumer, they might be able to sell it to a whole bunch more customers because every other step, the wholesaler, the retailer, they've got better skills. That's their expertise of being able to find more consumers. So you've got to weigh up. Are you a control freak and you need to be able to maintain quality and sell directly to the consumer? Again, it might be a lower cost doing that, so that could be a benefit too for marketing. You can sell it cheaper. But the downside is you might not be able to have as many customers to find to sell to. So you're weighing all those things up there. In terms of the other methods, we go to the other extreme. When you've got producer selling to a wholesaler, selling to a retailer, selling to a consumer, each of those steps, they're not doing charity. They're not doing it for nothing. They will value add by providing a service, and they will increase the price as it goes to the consumer. So the consumer will end up paying more money through that method of distribution. Therefore, you have to sell it for more. If something's more expensive, less customers will pay for it, and your sales could suffer. So this is the producer, the manufacturer as a business. You need to think in terms of marketing. Do you want to be able to maybe lower costs, increase your level of quality because you've got control, but not have as many customers, sales could suffer? Or do you want to have producer to wholesaler to retailer to consumer? Do you want to be able to get experts to be able to distribute it? Therefore, you might have more customers potentially, but it's going to cost you more to do so because so many people are touching the product all the way through to the customer, more likely to be damaged. Is that something that you want to be able to do? All of these things are things you've got to weigh up, and they result in better quality product going to the customer or more likely being damaged. Price could be more expensive involving other people. That could impact on your marketing. So you can start to see how each of these things can impact on the price that you set and the quality of the product that arrives with the consumer. So it certainly is a marketing strategy. Now, channel choice is your next distribution or place strategy. The choice of distribution channel will influence the type of customer the product attracts, the perception of the product in the market, and above all, the ease with which the consumer is able to access the product. The distribution channels, there's three options how you're going to distribute it to the customer. It can be intensive, selective, and exclusive. And just think of the term. Intense, it's everywhere, full on intense. Ugh. Exclusive, la-di-da, like, very remote, very limited, very classy perhaps. Selective, somewhat in between. So certain products, the manufacturer will want intensive distribution. Some will want exclusivity, exclusive distribution. And some will want in between, the selective. Now, what do I mean by intensive distribution? This occurs when the product is readily available to a wide selection of stores and locations. So if we think about Coca-Cola, it's a perfect example. The manufacturers of Coca-Cola, Coke, they will choose an intensive distribution. They will let every store stock and sell Coke. They'll have damn vending machines selling out Coke, the childcare centres or whatever, everywhere pretty much. Schools aren't meant to have it, but lots seem to. So they have intensive distribution. It doesn't create prestige or classiness when every person and shop can sell it, but it does flood the market with your product, And that in itself is good from a marketing perspective. It's a high sales approach, and it is putting your product everywhere and allowing lots of businesses to sell your product. Now, I'll go to the other extreme. Exclusive distribution is a form of distribution where there is a restriction, a limited or limitation on the number of products that are available or sold. So very few or just one shop is allowed to sell your product. So if we think of Tesla cars, the electric semi-autonomous cars, they're not sold in very many locations around Sydney. In fact, really probably one, maybe two now sell it. Why? The business wants to sell it to a limited number of customers. They don't want everyone driving it. They might, but they want to have this air of prestige. If only the rich can afford to have Tesla, that it's a classy, prestigious type of product. And so by limiting the supply of the product, demand and supply, you can up the price, and they try and sell it at very few locations so that demand for the product is greater than the limited supply of the car. And if you know anything about demand and supply, less supply, more demand, price goes up. So that's that use of that strategy. Selective distribution's in between. It involves the use of a limited number of stores or locations to sell or distribute a product, but a reasonable amount, not like one or two. This method allows a business to control where its product is sold, so there is some level of prestige attached to it. They're not selling it at really disgusting and really crappy stores, and ensures that places that are chosen to be able to stock the manufactured items are consistent with the image the business is attempting to project, and the product will reach its target market. So we think about it for a sec. Coca-Cola is sold in quite nice, luxurious hotels, because five-star hotels, people still want Coke. Yeah, but in terms of Coke as well, Coca-Cola is sold in some of these convenient shops or servos or whatever. They're disgusting, they're filthy, they're feral looking. Coke still sells there. That's intensive distribution. But if you've got a product that you want to be super classy and have exclusive distribution, there is no way in hell you would sell in some of those dives, because it looks like it's a crappy product. Even though your product's good, or it's being sold, diminishes the value. Now, Selective has a little bit of that. They try to keep away from those real low-end things to have some level of prestige. Now, physical distribution issues. This is the last part of the place or the distribution marketing strategy. You might think, issues, how is this going to be a strategy? Well, we look at potential issues in each of them and how to overcome them. But you'll also see transport, warehousing, and inventory or stock. These are good ways to get a competitive marketing advantage. So, firstly, transport. Transport refers to the process of moving goods from one location to another. Businesses must consider the length of time needed to transport the goods from place 1 to place 2. Transport can be expensive, and it's important that the business factor this cost in the final price of the good. In addition to this, if goods are to be sent that have a limited shelf life, i.e. something that's not going to be able to last long, so a perishable item, then they may want to choose an option of transport that's quick, because otherwise the pickles or the lettuce will go off or whatever you're selling. Now, there's a number of different transport options. There's road, rail, air, and sea. Road, rail, air, sea. And it's usually the air and sea competing against each other, and the road and rail competing against each other. For transport purposes, I'll just stick to the air and the sea to explain how it could be a strategy transport and to overcome this physical distribution issue, and how to therefore be effective marketing campaign. How can, whether you choose to get your products flown overseas, be a marketing strategy? Or do you choose to have on container ships? How the hell is that a marketing strategy? You should be asking yourself. Problem is, not every kid is, but you need to explain what it is and how it's a strategy. All right, let's have a think about it for a sec. I've got a product that, like caviar, whatever, fancy food that will have a spoiled date, that's perishable. It will go off. Now, will I choose to get it sent over via plane or sent over on cargo container ships? Plane from Russia through to old mate Sydney, Australia. By plane might take you, I don't know, a day, if that. If I get on a container ship, might take 4 or 5 weeks. I don't know if you know anything about caviar. I mean, teachers certainly do. Not. But it's an expensive product that may go off. It has a spoiled date. It's perishable. Let's say it goes off after a week. What strategy would you use if you're a business owner? Via air or via sea? If you said via air, you're intelligent. It's a marketing strategy because are you going to be able to sell your caviar if it's gone off to customers? Definitely not. If you do, it's going to be disgusting, make them sick, and therefore they'll never purchase from you again. It'll be a bad marketing strategy to choose the transport option of sea. However, on the flip side, if you had a product that's cheap, it's really cheap, that lasts forever, which option would you choose? Sea or air? You would choose the sea option because if you chose the air option, flying it's a lot more expensive. Then you'd have to factor that into the price of what you sell your product to the customer. And therefore, that's not an effective marketing strategy. We've already done price. If it's a low quality item, then you don't want to be upping the price if you don't need to. And if you do, then your customers will go with the other business. You want the cheap cargo, sea, delivery, transport option. See how these things, what they are, now they're strategies you need to explain. Now, warehousing. Warehousing is the next one. It refers to the process of storing products before they are distributed to the consumer. Many businesses use warehousing as a facility to store the finished products. It's important that the goods are effectively warehoused and stored. If there is not enough warehouses and therefore there is not enough goods available just in case customers need them, then this could be a bad publicity or have bad publicity for the business, and it's not good for marketing. In addition to this, warehouses need to be located nearby to the retail market, or the lead time may be high and consumers will not purchase from the business. So we go back to warehousing. There's a couple of things here as strategies. Firstly, JIC, just in case, versus JIT, just in time. You looked at this with operations. If you have a huge amount of warehouses, an infinite supply of warehouses, how does this have anything to do with marketing? I shall explain. If you've got lots of warehouses or only one, which is best? Well, it depends. If you've got heaps of warehouses, that's going to add additional cost to storing your products. But if you've got like lots of warehouses, then you're able to always supply that to your customers. You've got enough just in case. If you've got one warehouse or none, and it's just in time, what if there's a big increase in demand all of a sudden? You won't have enough stock there to be able to fill those customers' needs. So business A, crap load of warehouses, higher expense to store them though. Business B, just in time, no warehouses or maybe one. It's cheaper because you don't have to pay that storage cost. But when customers get a big demand, not enough products. They're both good marketing strategies in different ways. If a product has a high variation in demand, which we already talked about as an influence, then if you don't have enough stock on hand, you're going to get a bad reputation, bad publicity. Oh, so-and-so business A never has enough stock. No one will go with you. But on the other hand, if it's a very flat level of demand always, and low variation in demand as an influence, and you've got too many warehouses, it costs you more money, business B is better off because it can keep the cost down. Doesn't have to pay for all this warehousing and storage and security that's associated with it. Products are cheaper, customers are happier. So pricing is impacted on the amount of warehouses you've got. So for business B, you can sell it cheaper, cheaper price, more sales. Definitely a marketing strategy, but you got to explain it. It's not hard, but you got to explain it. All right, the last one is inventory. Now, stock for the Year 12 purposes is also referred to as inventory. The stuff on your shelves. There is a slight difference between stock and inventory. No way I'm going through that with you guys. See me later if you want to know. But they're essentially the same thing in terms of the HSC. A business must make sure that it has a sufficient stock to satisfy the consumer demand, or it will result in negative publicity and reduced sales. It is also important for the business to not overstock throughout other times of the year, though. And this is similar to what I'm talking about above with the warehousing stuff. Overstocking may force the business to have clearance sales. Clearance sales makes a business look tacky and cheap, and it loses some level of prestige. Having too much stock is bad because prices come down, you have to pay storage costs, and so on. Having not enough stock is bad because your customers will get annoyed, they can't get access to your products. So having just the right balance of inventory, not too much just in case, not too low just in time, that is something that is worthwhile weighing up. And that is when we talk about marketing and distribution, a strategy. How much just in case do you want? How much just in time do you want? Now, the last one that we mentioned before, which is warehousing, one final note. Where you locate your warehouses. If you're in, say, an American business, most of your customers might be in the US, okay, but to have lots of warehouses in the US would be expensive. To have lots in Mexico would be far cheaper. If you choose to have your warehouses in America, that's good in terms of lead time. It's good reputation for the business. You get the stock to the customer quickly, but it's going to cost you more. Higher price, customers aren't happy, bad marketing. Having all your warehouses stored in Mexico, much cheaper because it's a developing nation. Prices can be cheaper for your product because you don't have to pay as much for the warehouses, and therefore that's good for marketing. But to ship it up all the time from Mexico, poorer lead time, you may not have enough stock when you need it, and that could be a bad reputation for a business. All right, guys, thanks for listening. See you next time.